So tonight, as I stand before you, I share with you text from Parshat Lech lecha. This is the portion of Genesis, and the Hebrew to me, it's so familiar. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, Lech lecha ma'artzecha mimoladecha umibeit avicha el Eretz Hamoriah. Moriah is coming up next week on Dvar. Thank you. So, can't. Now I'm crossing two texts over. Why does Cantor know that? Because it's a fundamental piece of who we are as a Jewish piece. And they made her remember it in first grade. I found this week an alternative translation. And I share with you here, all of you, tonight. And as I say that, I share it, and I say I've got people sitting in front of me, but I also have people watching me through a camera, on their computers, hearing me through their audio. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha mimoladecha umibeit avicha el haaretz asher arareka. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise in its 5-year mission to explore new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Sheldon's with me on this one. Now, you'll probably notice it's not quite a direct translation. There's no mention of the Enterprise and the call to Abraham. But if we step back for a minute, there is so much Judaism in Star Trek. We know that, Leonard Nimoy. But for all of those years that I've looked at these different pieces and threads and values of Judaism, and I'll talk a lot about more of them, I never thought about the opening of Star Trek as such a Jewish text. I mean, Gene Roddenberry is Jewish, William Shatner is Jewish, Leonard Nimoy is Jewish. They were so central to the creation of that show. We know it's loaded with Jewish values, but I never said Lech lecha me'artzecha mimoladecha, space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. I never connected the two until this week. And in this week, and what I'm going to say is confusing because I'm going to talk about a bunch of times all at once. What happened this week in the world of Star Trek? William Shatner, age 90, went up on the Blue Origin's rocket up outside of the atmosphere. I mean, talk about this whole funky thing, because Captain Kirk was flying at warp 5 through the cosmos, and it's a big deal that William Shatner, 60 years later, is launching in a rocket. I mean, we will not get into the discussions about people with that much money who get a 5-minute ride on a rocket ship that's completely automated, calling themselves astronauts, when there's still people hungry on this world. We don't necessarily have to have that discussion. But this week, it was just that weird, wait, is that Captain Kirk or is that William Shatner? But wait, wasn't the Enterprise? But wait, the Enterprise is in the 1960s, and here we are in 2021, and it was kind of mind-blowing on lots of different levels, because that weird place of science fiction becomes science fact. And in one breath, I'm looking at that and saying, Captain Kirk is on a starship. They have got faster than light speed. They can beam people places. Wow, we haven't gotten really far. And yet then I am sitting here talking into a camera to people in Canada who are joining us for services. Hi, Jackie. Right? And if I wanted, I could pick up my phone and have a video chat with my children and my parents and whoever in real time from across the world. Remember reading a science fiction book and they're talking about the wrist computers? And I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And then I realized that I was watching on my hand computer. I have a wrist computer. So much of what we saw in those 1960s in Star Trek in terms of the science and the hopes and the dreams has come to fruition in incredible ways, and lots of other stuff hasn't. And that kind of brings me, it's this, you got Abraham 4,000 years ago. We've got Star Trek in the 1960s envisioning what the world could be. Here we have William Shatner being able to just go up on a computer-driven rocket, go up out of the atmosphere, and come back. May all of us have that opportunity to explore space and time. And you have it's just amazing in this world. And it was on this Torah portion, Lech lecha ma'artzecha mimoladecha. God said to Avram, go forth from your native land, from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. It's that same words from Star Trek. Voyages of the Starship Enterprise, 5-year mission, go and explore new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And we know it gets tweaked. I was very fascinated, I was looking at this, when they were putting together the White House booklet on space travel in 1958, this is a government document in 1958, it said, the first of these factors is the compelling urge of man to explore and discover. The thrust of curiosity leads men to try to go where no one has gone before. Most of the surface of the earth has now been explored, and men turn to the exploration of outer space as their next objective. Part of where they got it from. And actually, even earlier than that, Captain Cook, James Cook, as he intended to not only go farther than any man has before me, but I think it's possible for man to go. That push of human curiosity to go further. And realize that Cook's famous ship was called the Endeavor, which was part of the space shuttle. The name found its way in the shuttle program, just like the Enterprise, and then you get all of the Star Trek stuff that goes with it. They are beautiful texts because they say so much about us as humans. It is incredible to me as we read Parshat Lech Lecha, and we look at Abraham going forth, to see in our fiction, but also the reflection, because our fiction, such a reflection of ourselves, that same impulse, that same curiosity. And I think a lot, so much about the world Abraham was in and what it meant for him to go forth, and then what was meant with the Starship Enterprise to go forth, right? There you have Abraham, and he's in this world, and think about the world of Abraham for a minute, right? You have Adam and Eve, and they have a problem in the Garden of Eden. They get kicked out. They have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel, and that kind of goes downhill until you end up with humanity a mess by the time Noah comes around. Noah's righteous in his generation, but then Noah starts screwing up, right? Right after they're off of the ark, there's a whole thing with a vineyard and a cave. It's not pretty, folks. And another 10 generations, and here's Abraham, and God's like, wait a second, something needs to change. If we just keep having humanity over and over again with no rules and no boundaries and no relationship of covenant, we're going to keep burning ourselves out. And that's where you have Abraham, and Abraham gets this charge, go do something. And Star Trek is such a weird mirror of that, because in Star Trek mindset and world, think about it for a minute, Earth is safe. It's in shalom. They've got all diseases cured. They have faster than light space travel. They have ways of creating food for everybody. And what are they then able to do? Instead of Lech lecha ma'artzecha to go save the Earth, now they're going out to go explore the galaxy, to understand the galaxy. But when you think about it, what do they take with them? That same pursuit of tikkun olam, saying, wait, we've got this all figured out, but we see the universe is going out further and further. The galaxy is going out. We can go forth with our shalom and go forth. And yet, this is what I was thinking about, is the world of of Captain Kirk and Leonard Nimoy, is that a perfect world? Is it shalom? No, because they wouldn't have had a show, right? You wouldn't need phasers and you wouldn't need shields because we got Klingons. But I also think about that show in the 1960s, and yet it still dealt with racism and sexism and xenophobia. The same stuff that is plaguing us now, even as they were wrestling with it, they wrestled with it now. And there I've got this incredible piece as I look and think about that show and that mission that they are, realizing it's the mission of Abraham. And it would be really easy to be very pessimistic and say that even when we say we've got it figured out, we're just going to screw it up, or we're just going to take the negative out with us. But that's not what I hear when I think of Lech lecha me'artzecha mimoladecha u'mibeit avicha. When God is saying to Abraham to go forth, I don't think about the world that is so broken and Abraham goes forth. I think about Abraham, even in all of his imperfections, how he boldly goes. Or no, he and Sarah boldly go into the world in a way no one has gone before. Seeking different kinds of relationships, different ways of moving through the world. And that value, that way of thinking, that both optimism, that chutzpah, has found its way so deep into our neshama, so deep into our soul, that even when we start talking about our science fiction, we find a way to bring our past, the best of our past, forward into the stories we're going to tell that are full of our hopes and dreams for how we want the world to be. And so here, as we go forward into this Parshat Lech lecha, and it's not just Lech lecha, right? We get Parshat Vayera, we get all of these incredible adventures. It's my hope, it's my dream. I know I will be doing it. That even as I read in Torah and think about the journeys of my ancestors, I'll also be thinking about the fictional stories that were told in all of Star Trek and all of that world, those hopes and dreams of what our humanity could lead us to, but also thinking about my children, of what I do in this moment, what I carry forward from Abraham. Let us all, whether we are Captain Kirk or we are Abraham, as we go forward, let us take blessing, let us take that boldness, let us take that curiosity, and let us take that hope that we can see the world in a different way, that we can build the world in a different way, that brokenness that is out there, we, with our partnerships, with our communities, with our intellect, and with our spirit, can find ways of spreading hope to every corner of creation. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.